Hey, what's going on, Coach D?
We're
All right,
back. We're back
so,
at it.
so we'll hopefully have a great guest on, and just shoot him a text that we're on.
I'll
Make
let him
sure he
know.
knows because maybe he just signed up, maybe thought didn't know.
I'll,
Um,
I will check. I will check. He should be good though. Okay.
because he was in there, but we were talking for a minute. Maybe he thought he was in the wrong thing or something.
We're good.
Um, but yeah, so we're gonna talk to Coach Delaney today, from New Jersey to Georgia. It says it's on his Twitter. Offensive coordinator, East Lawrence High School, if I'm not mistaken, in Georgia, and he was a head coach for a long time in New Jersey,
Long
uh,
time.
at High Point. Um, Gone to warmer pastures, fertile pastures. Hopefully, we get to talk about some of the stuff, the differences, and uh, uh, coming from someone up in New Jersey, coming down there, and here, I think need to something. All right, wait another second. He's still not completely on there. I see his name down there. I just don't. He said there's it's device not connected. Maybe
He
that's
must have slowed down since he went down to Georgia.
maybe the phone doesn't.
Doesn't ring. Doesn't ring as fast. Maybe.
'Cause I keep trying to add him, but then he's not in there. All
Okay.
right. So
Listen, I've known him for a long time.
okay.
He's got a hell of a past in the coaching world. He's extremely respected. He's been nothing but a mentor to me. The way we kind of linked up was he coached for a year at Montclair State, and I just happened to be there. So that's kind of where we kind of linked up. Hey, Coach.
What's going on? You guys?
Oh, buddy. What's up,
right?
buddy? Looking good. Looking good.
Man, I will say this: one drawback of moving where we moved, there's no broadband yet or anything. There's we don't have Wi-Fi.
You're a little, come on.
That's what we were just talking about. We're like, maybe he's got a broadband issue going on.
The issue is there is none.
Oh.
All right, so there you go.
You're not dial up the old AOL.
Listen, hey, and I'm not saying you had the best broadband or Wi-Fi in High Point either, but it was better than what you got, buddy.
That's 100% right. 100% true.
Coach, thanks, man. I really I appreciate you jumping on with us. And we're gonna go through a couple things about you going from Jersey to Georgia and stuff like that. But just really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man, definitely looking forward to it. I'm glad you asked me. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Well, Coach D said you have some great nuggets for us today, so he was excited to talk to you. Just so the listeners know, just tell everybody a little bit your background as a coach and obviously where you are now in Georgia, just so everybody understands a little bit more about you.
Yeah, I've kind of been coaching for, I guess, about 25 years now, for a long time. I was a young guy for a while, right? Now, I'm one of the old guys, I guess now. But coached at I was an assistant at Whitney Park, at Clifton. Then I went to Bailey Ellard. I was assistant there for a couple of years. I was fortunate to be a head coach there, and the school closed. I coached at Montclair State. I went back to be an assistant at West Morris. And then I got the High Point job. I was there for 4 years. I got riffed. Went to Montville, Wallkill Valley, and then back to High Point for 7 years. And then in about 2 years ago yesterday, moved to Lawrence County, Georgia. And I'm an assistant there.
Where is Lawrence County, Georgia?
It's about an hour south of Macon. Dublin is the big city there, I guess. So it's right in central Georgia, right just about in the middle.
Very cool. And so that was in the middle of COVID, I guess, right? Is that?
It was a season after COVID. Yep. We did
after.
COVID. It was 2020.
Yeah, 2021.
2021 was my first season there. Yep. And I did coach the tight ends and H-backs and the defensive backs. I'm a special teams coordinator. And then last year and this year, the offensive coordinator.
So what made you move down there? What made you go from being in Jersey down there?
Well, first off, my wife has severe Crohn's disease, and there's a lot of side effects, I guess, that we didn't really know about. One of them being like arthritis. Um,
Do we lose him?
Georgia.
I think we may have lost him. He may be speaking on his end, but
He may be coming. It's all going to come back and be like,
uh,
it's the world we're living in.
well, yeah,
I don't know. That's a crazy little
it
thing.
might be true. The broadband thing may be an actual.
I think it's. I mean, all right. I don't. Georgia still just gets out to their recruits, so I don't know.
I guess, yeah.
Maybe all the juice goes to those cities and those places, and that's it. And poor Athens and smack or wherever the smack in the middle of it, it's like, hey, what are we doing out here?
There we are. You're back. You're
All
back.
right, you guys.
You were frozen for a few seconds.
no, and it's honestly, man, I think it's like the weather, like it's really humid.
It's humid.
Really
You're good. You're good.
humid, cold. So, we looked at moving into the South, and then when you start looking at, teacher salaries and coaching salaries and whatnot, it was really Georgia or maybe South Carolina. And I figured there's worse things I could be doing than coaching high school football in Georgia. You know what I mean? So,
Very cool. And so going from being like a head coach to a position coach back to
Big adjustment. Big adjustment. And
Yeah.
you have both gone through it. So you know what I mean? Like it's a different, and especially for
Is
you,
that right?
coach, being in the control spot for so long. Now all of a sudden you got to take a step back. I'm just a position coach. He make his call. It's his call. You know what speak on that a little bit.
You know what? I kind of like it because ideally my goal is to be a head coach again, right? And you always think what you're doing is the best way. The way we practice is the best way. The way we lift is the best way. The way, however you run the program. You don't get a chance to see how other people are doing it. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
So it's been kind of neat to take a step back. And, there's some things I picked up where, oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. And there's also some things where I've said, you know what? I think we were kind of on the right track a little bit.
Do you view? So I've been through it a couple of times myself. Do you view it as an opportunity to take a step back from a responsibility standpoint, even though you're obviously office coordinator, but from a responsibility standpoint, meaning, all right, mom's angry or dad's angry. There's a head coach. How's the delegation from that standpoint? I remember when I was a coordinator at Old Japan in between head coaching jobs, and we had a great team, and the players would come up to me with like XYZ issue. I said, "That's a head coach issue."
That
I
guy,
said,
that guy over there.
that. Yep. So
That
it's one of
guy.
after being a head coach for a long time, sometimes it's nice to take a break from that overall responsibility. You can focus on your world a little bit more.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I've discussed some things with the head coach, but ultimately those things sometimes aren't my decision. Like there's some kids discipline-wise that we have let go. There are some kids that we've had come back that maybe I'll just give you an example that maybe I don't necessarily agree with that he's back on the team. Well, but you know what? If he's here, I'm going to coach him.
Right.
Or I go out to practice and so-and-so's not here. Not a big concern of mine. I'll coach who's here, and that's fine. And
Yeah.
Like you said, kind of be in your own little world and not have to worry about any of that stuff. It has been good. I mean, I smile and wave at the parents. I don't. Yeah, right. If you have a problem, you go on up the road there, but from that part, it's been pretty good. You know what I mean? And like I said, and that was a thing that happened. There was a kid, and our head coach said, what does everybody think? And everybody gave their opinion. My opinion was that I think we should cut bait with him, and and it doesn't really matter. It's not that important, but
right.
He was back, he decided he wanted to give him another chance. That's his decision, right?
Okay.
That's what he wants to do. So I'll coach the heck out of him.
And I'll tell you the other thing I thought was great from a head coaching standpoint. When a head coach has another former head coach that they can discuss things with, I think that's a unique relationship too, because what it's like to sit there and have to deal with all the things that they have to deal with outside of just the actual game stuff and what we call the fun stuff, the coaching stuff, the fun stuff, right? So you understand all of that and have dealt with it yourself. So I found that in those cases when I've been back as an assistant that you've been a very invaluable assistant to the head coach because you've been there. So they know that they can ask you things that they may not feel comfortable asking someone who's been assistant their whole life, never been a head coach, because they don't know what it's like to have to deal with X consequence or Y consequence. Speak a little bit on that.
Yeah, or just to bounce something off of, hey, here's what I'm thinking about, or and there's things too. And our guy's he's pretty organized, he's pretty squared away, but sometimes like I'll say, hey, just think about this or whatever it is, and I think he appreciates that. He's a real good guy as far as that's concerned. But yeah, I mean, I think he's bounced some things off of me. I had the fortune when I was a head coach, I hired Brad Wilbur. Derek, I think you probably know him.
Yeah, I coached with him in one of our All-Star games.
Coach Schuman, I don't know. He was a head coach at Parsippany for 15 years. And so there are so many things that I would bounce off of him. And I was able to take that experience here with me. Like, all right, I'm kind of in Brad's role right now. So I'm going to give him my opinion if he doesn't want it. And that was the thing with Brad too. Like, and he recently passed probably about 2 months ago now, but that was the thing with him too. He would never get mad. Like, Jim, I think we should do this. Yeah, well, we're not doing that. Okay, fine. And I learned kind of a lot going back into this role now. That really helped me going forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. As a head coach, I think you take it as a former head coach. You'll probably be a head coach again one day. But as a former head coach, when a head coach doesn't take your suggestion, you don't take it as personally as a lot of times an assistant would do that.
Yeah, an assistant would get in their feelings and why isn't he using my eye, this or that or that. A head coach is like, you're good. Like, cool, let's move on next.
Because they know ultimately the head coach has to make the decision.
Right.
That's 100% true. Hey, look, here's what I think. You don't want to do it? It's fine. It's okay. I get it.
It's your name on it, right? Like it's your program.
And that's funny. And I think too, sometimes, like I said, our head coach is a good guy. And sometimes, he'll disagree with something I said, and then he'll come back a couple hours later and say, hey, look, man, I just want to let you know, this is why I did it. Coach, it's fine. Well, you're not mad about it, are you? No, I don't care. I mean, exactly. I do care, but it doesn't.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So New Jersey to Georgia, and obviously you were in different places, but talk about football differences. Tell for at least in the 2 years you've been down there, like what are some of the things that you've observed that are different between Georgia football and New Jersey football? You might be frozen. So we have to send. We're gonna have to send Coach some.
I feel so bad.
Xfinity.
It's like, dude, can I get a truck outside for you or something? Be like, here's.
And I don't know whether I should log him out and maybe he should log back in. That might be the better way.
Listen, this is the tech stuff. This is the stuff where
well, I'll remove him and then
he can sign back in, baby.
Like maybe if he.
I just feel bad. He's like, yo, it's so humid here. It's this.
Let me
it's in the middle of Georgia.
Okay, let's kick him out real quick and see if we can get him back in. But I am that's my $90 million question we were getting to right there, which is Georgia football versus New Jersey football, especially because of the growth of number of Division One players. It's the fastest growing state from that standpoint.
And a lot of people, we don't speak on it much, but we have in the past. Like, the University of Georgia is the number one football team in the country and has been for a little bit now. And remember, those people have no pro team to root for. Georgia football is gospel.
They do. They have the Falcons.
Who I do think will be better because they took that running back from Texas, but he can't do everything.
Oh,
I mean, he can do everything, but
Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, and they have Kyle Pitts from Florida, the tight end.
Okay, we're back. Welcome
back, Coach.
I don't know if you heard, but New Jersey football versus Georgia football. Like, what are some of the differences? And it looks like you might have frozen again, but I'm not sure. Did you hear the question by any chance?
I didn't know. Listen, real quick. Do you guys think I should try on my phone, or you think that wouldn't be much better?
Yeah, it might. Your phone might be better if you have more 5G. Yeah, that might be. Yeah. I would go on your phone. Yeah. That's probably going to be better.
I'm gonna exit this out real quick.
Yeah, perfect.
You're good. Yeah, wild.
Right, there we go. Let's take this. And we'll get that.
Oh yeah.
All right, there we go. That's definitely gonna be better.
That's definitely gonna be better, Coach. You're good, man. We're good.
So what I asked was New Jersey football versus Georgia football. Georgia being like one of the fastest growing states in football, like number of Division I players. They're now always teetering on. They're always top 4 now, but teetering on 3 and growing. Basically some years have passed actually California, which is incredible. What are some of the differences you see, from up here to down there football wise?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's more important. You know what I mean? It's more important to everybody. It's more important to administration, communities, coaches, parents. You know what I mean? Like, even the kids not on the football team know a little bit about, you're playing, Johnson County's got 2 good running backs. How do kids know that? But because I think everybody follows it. And so I think it's more important to everybody. One thing I was saying to Derek last night, that I think about every single school in the state has weight training, and I would say as a class, and I would say 80% of them will have almost the whole football team in one period together, right? And how much you get done there, and what you're able to do there, and you're able to be with your team every single day. Not right, like at our place, some of like the real smart kids, they're not able to take period 1 weights because they have to take, I don't know, physics or whatever it is. But I got to thinking about it. Well, New Jersey almost has a leg up on every other school in the country because we have mandatory phys ed. So it should be a no-brainer. In my mind, it would be almost easy, and I think that goes a really long way. Talent-wise, there's good teams and there's bad teams, right, in both states. But I'll say, like, even like teams we play that are not good. We weren't very good last year. They have some, creatures on their team. And you're like, oh my God, we played a team 2 years ago. We won 42-14, and they had a receiver that we couldn't guard, we couldn't cover. Well, guess who had the 2 touchdowns? You know what I mean? They were just able to get the ball off. He caught it and did something crazy and scored twice. So, I think there's good and there's bad everywhere, but it just seems like even bad teams will have 1 or 2 kids that you look at in warm-ups and go, oh my gosh. So I would say that would be the big difference. Speed-wise, I think is about every team can run. Even their guys up front can run a little bit, and but more athletic, I guess you would say.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, and that's almost what I expected. Probably the answer. And I remember the first time I ran a camp down in Georgia, in Atlanta, and this is when our camps used to be really huge. I mean, I was like, oh my goodness, there were so many talented kids. Like the average kid was very talented,
Yeah,
right?
that baseline, right? Of
The
like, hey,
baseline.
I'm a high school football player, right? Like I'm just doing this. I'm not going to like that baseline, from Jersey to Georgia is here.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Like these guys will go down to Georgia. You might be a baseline guy. Now all of a sudden you go down there and you're never seeing the field, right? Or like, it's not like, wow.
But go back to what I first said. Like, all right, so that average kid who played, football, basketball, and baseball. Well, in New Jersey, when's he lifting and doing all the, the agility and speed
Right.
stuff, right?
Whereas if he had that extra period or that football class, he can get that done. And we just had that conversation because you're familiar with him. We had Liam Anderson on, my quarterback from the year. I mean, we actually played them that year, Coach. So he got to see it live. So we just talked to him because he signed with Indianapolis. So, talking about his journey, about all that kind of stuff. And, great kid and whatnot. But yeah, totally get it. If he had that, and he was a 3-sport guy, if he had that period in school where now, hey, I can get a workout in, he could do that every day and might have changed some things.
So what is that? So does that mean? So explain that. So you guys have a period where they can like in Texas, I know they have like a football period. They use that for workouts, and
Yeah,
you have that too there.
We do. The way we have it set up is we'll have football in two. There'll also be some general population in there. It's only 2 periods a day. And what he's trying to do is to get it switched where you have all the general population in one period and all the football. I would say in one period it's probably, 75% football kids. Second period is probably 50 or 60%, football kids and whatnot. They're able to do, all that
football stuff.
Right. And I just think it gives you so much more than, if you take one class a day over 4 years, right? I mean, how much time is that you've had?
Right, you're just looking at the time. It's like Kobe said, if I wake up 2 hours earlier and I'm working 2 hours more than you, just by math, within 3 years, I'm this far ahead of you because I've just put in that extra time. And I could see that, like, look, even if I don't have to go out there and have my whole team in one period to be out there running plays, I don't need that. I just need the cerebral part of football where we could sit down, we could talk, maybe we could do some X's and O's, that type of thing. And a one class a day would, you just add it up.
I think some people do that. We don't, as like you said, go out on the field and do that stuff. We don't do that, but we do have some of those general population kids. But we'll lift or do agility and stuff for like an hour and 10 minutes, I don't know, an hour say, and then we have a half hour to, like you said, maybe during the season, a little bit of film study, during the spring, a little bit of
You can just make it work. It's amazing,
no doubt. It's big, and it's important. I can't tell you, like you were saying, the difference is, we get, we feed our kids before and after every game, and it's usually donated or a church will come and, provide a meal, or it's generally it's a church group or a religious group will come and provide. So you're talking about 10 games, 20 meals, plus, you probably eat something during the spring. There's a lot of people that are willing to help and willing to support you and support what you need.
I think that makes a big difference. Is there a big so where you are, is the town come out to games? Is that kind of like a scenario? Is a smaller town area, or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say yes. We actually have 3 high schools in our county, which there's a lot of counties where it's like, there's one school and it's a one horse deal. We do have three, but like I said, 2 years ago we were pretty good. Last year we weren't good. We lost a lot of kids and whatnot. There was a lot more kids there was a lot more fans 2 years ago than than this year, but it's pretty good. When we have a home game, it's pretty crowded, and I would say it's trending in that direction.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting to hear, like, yeah, because I know in Georgia they have, like you said, Johnson County. They have what's the one that the famous guy coaches at Colquitt, and then you got each county has it. Thomas County was where like Herschel Walker came from, maybe. So each one of those different counties represent like a whole entire high school, but that's probably population wise is what it is, right? Because you get into Atlanta, there's a bunch of different high
Yep.
schools in because there's so many so much bigger population.
I could be wrong out of this stuff because I don't know everything myself either, but I think the further you get from Atlanta, the way more spread. I think the 3 counties that are in Atlanta might have 50 schools, but like down around here, like we're one of the biggest counties land wise, I think, in the state. So we have 3 high schools, but I mean, like you said, what'd you say, Colquitt? I think that's the only school they have. Johnson County, that's the only school they have. I think that's pretty common. You know what I mean? And but like you said, it's based on population and whatnot. Savannah has a bunch of schools. Columbus has a bunch of schools. So. And then the more rural you get, the more spread out it is.
Cool. So from a recruiting standpoint, we always end up touching a little bit about recruiting. How does that work down there? Like, what is the biggest thing that like a lot of the kids do, and what the coaches do with do schools stop? Obviously, in Atlanta, they're going to stop in certain areas, but as you get farther away, do guys come in there? How do you guys help the kids from that standpoint? How does that work down where you are?
It's crazy, like it's wild when you say, and we don't have. Well, we might now. We have a couple of young kids I think could be pretty good. Maybe a senior this year as well. But like Clemson, Georgia Southern, Mercer, Kennesaw, South Carolina. The coaches that come through here, and it, like you said, I don't know if they're on their way somewhere, but it was crazy the big time schools that have come through here. I think, man, like that. One thing that kind of stinks, I think, is I don't know that maybe there's one Division III school in the whole state, maybe, and I think it's like one of those like super high academic schools. You know what I mean? Like those NESCAC schools. I mean, it's not a NESCAC school, obviously, but I think it's a high academic.
Emory? Is it Emory? Is it Emory? Does Emory have football, or is it?
I'm not sure. I thought it was like I want to say Shorter or.
Shorter. Shorter might be D2 though. I think there is. Yeah, Shorter. Shorter's D2.
That's what I'm saying. Like I don't think they're and it kind of stinks for a lot of kids that like you said, Derek, are pretty good players, but are sort of average, right? Comparatively speaking, they could. I mean, heck, they could go to William Patterson or Montclair, and they'd have a great career. But I think a lot of the recruiting is similar. Kind of similar as far as trying to help the kids through social media, try to help the kids make decisions doing that. Help them with their huddle highlights and I mean, I just even like at High Point, it's crazy in my mind how simple recruiting has gotten. Right, we used to make highlight tapes and we used to make all these calls and whatnot. And now it's like it's social media, it's your huddle highlight, and then what kind of grades do you have? And it's I think that probably around the whole country has gotten way more streamlined and way easier to do as a head high school coach.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part. Derek, by the way, I muted you just because you had your like little background feed. So whenever you want to chime in, you can.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, you're good.
So I was gonna say, yeah. So I think that's really interesting how in recruiting now. You're right. Like they go make their huddle tape. If they do it correct, there's obviously ways to do it correctly, and then start DMing the coaches, reaching out, and then DMing coaches that you look and the coaches are doing the same thing too, right? So that's like the starting point for most of it, unless you have obviously a guy that you have a relationship already, where you might be calling or texting them. And texting, I mean, that's pretty much like the three mediums. You're basically texting, DMing, tweeting, and then you're doing your huddle. You're doing your film right on huddle. There's no emailing. I mean, look, do people email? I'm sure they do, but it falls on deaf ears for the most part.
And it's crazy. I remember.
Yeah, some GA is reading a random letter that you wrote. Like, okay, buddy, you're good, right? And listen, VCR tapes, right? You're making highlight cut-ups. Huddle, right? And those programs really just took the recruiting aspect of it and put it into the hands of now the player, right? To go and, hey, you do yours and then come back to me. We kind of cut it out of ourselves, right? And now these guys get all like, oh, he's doing this with that guy, or he's doing this with that. And the head coach is kind of cut out of it a little bit because we pushed it away.
So I guess that would be a drawback a little bit too, right?
Right.
Say it like that. That would be you're right. I mean, you try to help the kid with the huddle tape. You look at their Twitter and make sure that they have what they need up there, or that they don't have what shouldn't be up there. And I guess that's really about it, most part, until it moves on, and then once they start worrying about academics and they want to see, transcripts, they want to see what kind of kid he is and whatnot. So yeah, I guess that's a good point too. And it was funny you said VHS, man. I remember dreading like the end of the season. There's 4 kids that want to play, and well, I'm not going to give them the tapes to take home with them. I sit with them and work on a highlight tape. I guess it's gotten easier, but at the same, well, even tape exchange, right? Like,
yeah,
go meet a guy.
What parking lot of whatever are we meeting in to drop these tapes off? Like that used to be an awkward situation.
Well, yeah, but it also used to be kind of cool too. Like,
yes,
I go meet Dave Albano, and we sit and have coffee and talk and BS for a half hour, 45 minutes, right? Or the guy at Mount Olive, the older guy, I can't remember his name now. His son's the coach of Butler.
Lucien.
Yeah, and I remember
go sit with old man Luce.
Sit and talk and all. And now it's just you click a button. Here's your games and here's a one that kind of sucks. Talking about difference wise, the pool. We don't have the huddle pool here.
Really?
And guys are like, I think where we were like 20 years ago, we're like, you got to call, not that long, but you got to call the guy. And, well, I know this guy who knows this guy who played them. Maybe I can get that tape. And then, and I'm just like, why can't we just do it? I mean, we're going to get it anyway. Why?
Right.
We got to do all this. It's ridiculous. They just look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, I think it's pretty easy to do, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. The pool thing is the greatest thing ever. Like, what are you hiding? I used to love watching. I would pull down like Bergen Catholic's film. Like, what are they running here in this? And like, okay, yeah, we could do this. Or
that used to be like that would be my off season, right? Like somebody you like what they're doing on offense, or they pull it down, right? And then you say, and at the end of the season, you a lot of research that you do, a lot of learning you could do, and that's not necessarily the case here.
And I think the other thing, the point you brought up is right too, about even though it was a pain in the butt to exchange film, the camaraderie among coaches was definitely better, because especially for younger coaches, like, I'm older. If you've been coached for 25 years, you're probably somewhere around my age. So like we went through that, and we were able to build relationships with other head coaches, other assistant coaches. You might get a job. You might want to bring one of those guys with you. for the younger guys that are involved now, because that isn't as big a deal unless you know somebody. You're not actively meeting newer coaches, so you could be a young guy without really building the network like we used to be able to do. Like even when I was an assistant, I remember they used to say, "Hey, coach so and so, you got to go." You know, I was in Bergen County. My first assistant job was at Saddlebrook, where I had played in high school, and they'd be like, "Hey, you got Benji Wimberly's over at Dunkin' Donuts." He's like, "Go over there, give him the film. You know, we'll take care of the rest of this part of practice." And I would sit there and talk to Benji Wimberly, and he would be like, "Oh yeah, I remember when you played at Saddlebrook," and he was like a young assistant at Patterson Catholic back then and stuff. And so like you talk for 30 minutes and now you have a relationship. But that was how I met Benji Wimberly. Like I met Benji Wimberly doing the exchanges as an assistant. And you know, and then when I became a head coach, you know, I already had that relationship. And I mean, that's just one of many guys, but that's those things got built that way. I think that's one of the things. Now you got to go to clinics again. Obviously, you always go to clinics. You can meet guys, but you know, most coaching staffs go to clinics with their staff, right?
Get together.
You're not meeting other guys as much as you used to.
But coach, here's the other thing too. About this the other day, we have probably 3 or 4 guys that are not, you know, younger guys. And we went to the Glazers in Atlanta. There's not a ton of clinics. And, you know, a lot of times they're learning football, and I am too, and it is great. But with what you're talking about, it's not great on Twitter and YouTube and TikTok. And there's good stuff. And I've learned some things on there too, but you lose that, what is it, networking, or you lose those, you know, kind of relationships that you could build going to, what was that clinic? There's out by Saddlebrook every May, Cresskill, right? You go to the Cresskill clinic and
that was great.
Right, like it was almost like every county kind of did their own little thing, right? Like when I was in Morris County, you know, you used to have the Morris County coaches clinics, right? Like, and you would do little ones each week, bring somebody in, talk, do that. Like that stuff matters, man.
Absolutely.
You're right. And Tony Carson used to have one as well with I think when Mike Miello used to do it.
Yep.
Those were like,
hey, that's your buddy.
Yeah, I know. That's the local clinic was like a really, really good. Stengel used to run a lineman clinic. I don't know if he does. Maybe he still does it, but he used to do a lineman clinic specifically for line coaches. Like I used to love going to that as a head coach, because you're always you don't, unless you're a line guy first, you don't get to really get into the weeds on things. You know, you're basically saying, hey, here's how I want to block it, and they've got to execute it. But I would go there and see all the different ways guys were blocking things and just the little nuances of it. Those were great.
That's my plan. I was telling you, if I'm fortunate a head job, that's my plan, is to set up the Southeast line clinic and get whatever O-line and D-line coaches I could get. Because like you said, it's a and I'm gonna, you know, I coach the O-line, but it is, and get into the details of it. And there's not one Glazer clinic that you could do a 45, 55 minutes on and feel good about walking away that I know offensive line play, right? Like it's more than that. So that's one of my goals. As it's pretty far down the list, right? But that's something I would like to do, and something I think was important. But you're talking about them local clinics. I remember, man, it's so funny too. Like the Morris County Coaches Clinic, and I used to go to most of them, right? But I think they did it like once a month, and like I wouldn't go for a month, and I wouldn't go for a second month. And I'm thinking, man, Jerry Gallagher's gonna be pissed at me. I really don't feel like going. There's nothing that interests me this month, but I better get my butt there. Right. And
right. Because if not, he'll probably give you a call and be like, hey, you all right? You good? What's going on? Just that camaraderie. And listen, even being a young guy, right, and kind of coming up through the reins and, you know, bouncing around with this guy or that guy, just developing that network right, like has created something for me personally that like it's just on a different level. Whether it's, going to Bosco and coaching there for a couple of years and living that world for a little bit, right? Or just coaching in all-star games where you're with another guy and all of a sudden it's like, hey, what's up? And that's just kind of how it works. And like, even when we came down here from up north, right? And I don't want to say what school you went to because coach doesn't know that what high school you're actually from, bro. So I just, but I'm just saying it's different, right? It's the Shore Conference. It's not Morris County. It's these guys have been here and now you got to kind of like earn your stripes almost. It's a different type of flow, but at the end of the day, we're all coaches, all looking to help our kids get to where they want to be, right? Ultimately.
Right. Yep. And that's 100% true. And I think it's, well, yeah, I would say it's similar here, but I don't know. Maybe there's not that camaraderie because I don't know a darn soul either. You know what I mean? So I can't talk too much about that. But I'd agree with that.
I thought your point about there's a lot of great content online, which is great, such easy access for coaches. But the thing that came to mind when you're saying, yeah, but like it's the whys, right? If you're watching a team run power, right, and they're wrapping their linemen around, and the guy's kicking out, and maybe they do it slightly differently, or they pull a different guy, or what. Like, no, you could watch it on YouTube, but to know the why they're doing it, and what front they're doing it against, and why they do it against this front, and why in particular are they doing it against this team, right? Maybe there's a weaker defender, or maybe a team has a stronger defender on one side, and they're doing. So those are the things that you don't get. That's what I used to love about the really good clinics, was that like you can know why, coach would be up there and say, well, this three technique's killing us all day. So we decided we were going to go to the open side, right? Where we had to attack the 1 and the 5. So versus attacking the guy with the 3 technique side. So those kind of things made a big difference. And now, you'll get in a meeting and, I've been an analyst for the last 2 years for Old Japan. So I haven't been on the field in a couple of years, but I did notice that the younger guys, because of that, they'll make what I would call and not young like Derek. I mean, young Derek's mid-30s. I'm talking about youngers in their 20s. Okay, so Derek, those guys will make suggestions without any backing to their suggestion. You know what I mean? So why don't we run this play, or why are we in 5 wide, or why are what?
And then you ask them, okay, well, why do you want to do that? And it's right, like, okay, I know you played Madden, but that doesn't mean you can coach. Like that's the little stuff like that.
Like my next thing is was it North Dakota State? They run an A-gap power, right? Like they're
well, you always got to talk about running the ball. Like, let's run the ball. Let's run the ball. Like, I know you like to run the ball, bro, but sometimes you got to chuck it.
Hey, you'll appreciate this. We were 50-50 last year. I never thought I would say that, man. I've never ever thought.
Welcome to the world, brother.
And I feel a little dirty saying that.
Yeah.
But that's like you're trying to learn their A-gap power. Well, they're not just running power and now it's aiming points to A-gap. Like, I really like it a lot, but I don't know enough about it. Like, if you asked me what they were doing, I couldn't answer. So we're not running it, right? But that's something that you need to research. You need to look at. And you need to find somebody. Not going to North Dakota, so you need to find somebody that does that. When I was coaching at Bailey Ellard, we wanted to be a 3-4 defense, right? And we kind of
Kareem Huggins.
Yeah. But then we found out Montclair was running it, so we went up there and wore them out for days on it. You got to find someone that's doing what you're doing and try to learn from it, like you're saying, or they get power, or Lincoln Riley at where's he now at USC with the counter tray. Well, they're so coached up on that. They're so you got to go. Maybe you don't have to go to California, but you got to meet with somebody that's kind of majoring in that, in my opinion, to try to learn what to do and what not to do. I probably for the first 10 years I coached was a master's class in what not to do, right? When you learn more as you go on. And so, but you're right. You got to get into the weeds of it. You got to research it. You can't just come up with this idea, and you need to be able to back it up.
Yeah, and experimenting is a big deal. Like I loved Lincoln Riley's his GT power and then his read off of it, right? His backside read off of it. It was just unbelievable. They used to run at Oklahoma all the time. But it's not till you start experimenting. And Derek was coaching me, but like, so he knows I'll experiment, right? And I'll experiment. I'll put something in there, and if I don't see
Package of the week.
if I don't see there's progress on it, you just throw it right out and don't even worry about it. Like it's gone.
Yep.
Maybe we revisit it next year, but this year that's we and you experiment, and that's how you start to learn those things and getting coaches experienced on that. Hey, it's just like, listen, it's no different than a scientist, right? You got to research it, you got to test it, right? And then you got to see if your hypothesis is true. If it is true, then maybe you can go and implement it. If it's false, it's not work for whatever reason, people can't execute it. It's not, your guard can't do the job, those kind of things. Then you got to throw, and you got to be willing to do that kind of a thing.
Our head coach, he let me run whatever terminology I wanted, whatever system, whatever, right? And that's what we do. And like when he'll ask something like, "Hey, why don't we put in, or why don't we do this today?" Whatever, Well, no, I don't want. And he always said, "Why?" Well, because I think we're gonna do this, X, Y, Z, whatever it is. And he's good with it, right? Like, okay, you got a reason for why you don't want to do it. That's fine, and so that works pretty well. But like you're saying, I'm able to experiment and try some things too. And why are you doing this? Well, because I think, this, and this. All right, yeah, have at it, and that's actually helped me grow a lot too, where, I'm not running somebody's system. It's kind of a new system for me as well. And like you're saying, we tried so hard to make that dagger route work, where two runs vertical and then one comes in, runs a deep dig, and there's somebody in the flat, right? And we ran it, and there was somebody open every single time we ran it in practice. But we either couldn't get it to him, right? The deep dig, we couldn't throw it that far where it needed to be, or we couldn't protect it for that long. So you can look at it for so long, and then you guys say, well, you know what? Like you said, if you guys, it's awesome, and I'm telling you, there was somebody wide open on every time we did it. But if you can't do it, it don't make no sense, right? So we're not running that this year. And that's kind of the neat thing of being able to experiment. And it sucks when it doesn't work, but you're able to try it.
No, but the no sweat approach to it too is a big thing. Like I always think assistants sometimes get frustrated in the sense that because you put it in, you start to work on it, and then you're in the middle of practice and you're like, all right, yeah, that's it for this, and then you don't revisit it maybe the rest of the year. And they're like, well, why did it work? And then each week maybe you have a new wrinkle, and sometimes it works and it gets incorporated in. Sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes assistants get frustrated. But it's all part of the long, like you think about it as, yes, you only have certain groups of kids. You have seniors, and they obviously want to win right now. But as a program, the culture is built over time, right? So those experiments help to build what your team can do well, whether it's spread, whether it's wing T, whether it's some version of option, whether it's anything and everything in between. You're working to figure out what you guys can do well and what you can execute, and putting them in the best situation possible. And it's obviously how you it's how you see it, right? So you with the head coach, like someone else might see it differently, but this is how you see it, and this is how you see it to be the best way to make it happen.
And maybe where you see it in the end, you see what the end maybe you think could look like, right? So how you gonna take those steps? I don't know if it's what you're talking about, but I think it kind of relates a little bit. For my first 10 or 12 years, we were a Paul Johnson Navy under center, 90-10 run football team. And then COVID came on and, came along. It was kind of a perfect storm. So COVID was coming, so we had a lot of time, right? And we're on YouTube and all that stuff. And we had a really good quarterback that was going to be a senior. That I thought was going to be maybe one of the best we had. Very athletic, but could throw. And then behind him was a kid that I thought could be a decent quarterback, but was not a very good athlete. So, again, having a ton of time, being able to think about, like you're saying, putting kids in a position to be successful. Well, when you really think about it, if you're running the flex bone, you need a certain type of quarterback, right? You need a certain type of fullback, a certain mindset of a fullback. You need to have two wings that could run, block, catch, and do it all. And the more I thought about it, like, it's really hard to stick square pegs in the round holes, or whatever it is. And so we had to morph, I thought, and if we were going to keep being successful. Now, ultimately I left, right? But if we were going to keep being successful, we had to kind of change what we were doing, and to be able to put kids in those positions.
You have to adapt.
You have to adapt. Yep. And I think
it's something that Dave and I talk about all the time, because coming down here to the short conference, right? And you kind of know this world, it's different, right? It's a different type of football. It's a different type of club. So like you see how their programs are run, and they've been doing these things for a really long time, and it's been successful. But now you're almost holding your kids back in a way. And especially with the way, how it is up north, and how big things are, how fast things happen, change, this guy's going here, whatever, all that stuff. Down here, it's like, whoa, we had to take a step back and look and be like, okay, these guys do it this way. But, slow and steady, you start to see how little things are starting to go into these programs that now they're kind of adapting and moving forward. Because look, the kids ultimately are going to do whatever they do, whether you're there to help them and support them in the best possible way. That's on you, right? Mm-hmm. If your program needs to change, you have to do that in order to make it happen.
I think it's tough. And there are guys that'll disagree with me, and I get it. It's fine. I think it's tough to say to be a system guy anymore, right? Like to be a wing T guy, or a flex bone guy, or an air raid guy, because we can't go out and get for the most part, you can't go get what you need to play those different positions. Where I'm at now, we have
Did we lose him?
What happened there?
I don't know. Did we lose him? Oh, you're back.
My bad.
You're good.
Maybe I was talking too much. Shut down.
No, go ahead. You were saying.
You're good. Keep going. You're good.
Like where I'm at now, we have three really, really good receivers, and we have a couple tight ends I think are decent. There's not one kid in our program that could be a flex bone fullback. There's maybe, one or two kids that could play flex bone wingback, right? So you're putting your kids in the spots that you're not going to be
successful.
Yeah, you're just not, or you're not going to be as good as you could be.
Right. Look, and listen, and I tell Dave this all the time, like the reason that at Butler High School, we ultimately went to the run and shoot offense when we did in the early 90s was because we couldn't run wing T there. We didn't have the kids, the size, so we had to figure out a way to hey, how do we get how can we be successful? Because we can't do it this way. So ultimately they just, they figured it out. And that's why I was a run and shoot guy, growing up.
You have time for a funny story real quick?
Oh, God, here we go.
All right. So Nick
Oh man.
Do you think it's his phone or what is
I
it?
don't, I just think it's like in and out. I just don't know. It has nothing to do on our end, I don't think.
No, I don't think. Yeah, it must be his service. Yeah.
Funny story. Like, come on, man, let's go.
Oh, for a quick story, you could just say no. You don't have to throw me out of it. But
I like, come on, yeah, okay. Yeah. Let's hear it. Let's go.
so this is actually what started me thinking about. All right, maybe we're sticking kids. Nick was playing for Baltimore, and we went to that one year they were really good. So Week 17 game.
That's right. You have to explain that. Nick, what's his name?
Nick Boyle played for.
Yeah, so he was a High Point guy, right?
Played for me at High Point.
Okay.
So there was a Week 17 game. They were already in playoffs. They were already home field advantage. They had a bye week next week. So we went to the game, and he said, "You want to come by the facility tomorrow? I'll show you around." All that stuff. Yeah, sure, awesome. So we go by, and we go to Harbaugh's office, and Harbaugh's like, he's great, really, really nice guy. And he said, "How was Nick in high school?" And I said, "Oh, coach, he was tough. He was, physical. He's, whatever." And I thought I was going to be funny. I said, "Yeah," but he only caught 7 balls his senior year. And Harbaugh looked at me and he goes, "Well, that's coaching." And I said, "Well, I guess."
It's amazing how Nick Boyle is really stuck.
He did, yeah, yep. And I don't know, he's a free agent now, but yeah,
he's free agent now, but he's stuck for a while.
Yeah, he had that really, really nasty knee injury.
Right. Well,
a little bit, but he was back. I mean, he came back. 2 seasons, I think. After that.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't realize he played at High Point.
Yeah,
and you're from down the shore, were you Rumson or?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yep.
Cool.
Purple school, bro.
The what now?
The purple school, bro.
Rumson was probably a much smaller town back then, right? Like Group 2, maybe.
Yeah, we've spoke on this a little bit. You can touch on that, Jim. You can talk about Rumson and that, how it's like, different and whatnot. You can definitely talk on that.
Crazy, man. I think 2 years we were Group 1, and I think 2 years we were Group 2. And it wasn't freshman, sophomore 1. It was like 1, 2, 2, 1 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it was just a small, never been. Well, they're like, what are they, 3 now or big
they
2?
Might be 3 or 4. I think they're 4.
I don't know. My mom still lives in Fairhaven. I don't know how they have people that can afford. Like, I don't know how it got so big. Like, how can you afford to move in there? I don't know what those.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Because it's not like they built. It's not like they just, built all kinds of condominium complexes or something. They didn't do that there. But I guess
when I was growing up, there was a lot of like old timers in Rumson, right? Like, sort of around kind of about a high school and old timers is the best way I could put it. And I think what's happening is, they're selling, right? And then young people are moving in. And really what they're doing is young people are moving in, knocking down those little houses that like maybe I could afford, probably not.
Right. And now they're just building these monstrosities that are like, why do you need that?
Yeah. But they have, each of them have 2 or 3 young kids, I guess, or, whatever it is.
That must be what it is. Now, so did you go to Dell? Must be about Del Dalpra?
He was my freshman coach.
Okay, so he's your freshman coach. All right. So yeah, right, because Dell's probably 5 or 6 years older than me, I guess.
Dell's the man, bro.
Yeah, he was great. That's
and
great.
And obviously, because, Dave, when we came down here, it's like,
I love Dell.
So I called coach and was like, look, I know you're this year. Like, do you know this? He's like, he was my freshman coach, man. I'm like, dude, he is the best.
Yeah, we love Dell. We love Dell.
He's a good man. He's retired, right? I think.
Yes, but he's now the AD at St. Rose.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, so he's the AD there.
Yes, he double dipping, bro. He's taking that pension money, and then he's good to, now he's still working. He's smart.
Yeah.
Because look, you want to talk about a guy on the go? He was always doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Like, but
great
controlled chaos. You know what I mean? He knew where his stuff was.
Don't mess.
If he never left, I'd still be at Red Bank.
Yeah, I would bet that. But one thing they have in Georgia, and I won't have enough years, I don't think, to be able to do it. But when you retire, you could collect 49% of your salary. No, sorry, you collect your pension, and you can go work somewhere else. 49, right? So you collect 49% of your salary plus your pension, which is a lot of guys have done that, and it can still be in a public school. And so a lot of guys have done that.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
They make a pretty good money. But like I said, years.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yep.
Damn.
That's actually a cool deal.
That actually shows you the lack of teachers, right? And like how they're willing to just recycle a teacher, pay them whatever to come into my building.
Really up on it, but from what I heard, they're going to increase that 49% to some higher percent. To exactly what you said, to get people to come back and teach. It's everywhere, man. No.
Oh yeah, it's a horrific profession. You know what I mean? And it don't matter what state you're talking about. But we did talk about that a little bit, the academic side of Jersey to Georgia, right? And kind of matching up. Like listen, you have a son, right? He's what grade is he now?
He'll be in sixth.
Right. So you moved him like right in the middle of it. I mean, that had to be a decision. I mean, could you speak on that a little bit?
Well, it actually was kind of perfect. Let me think for a minute. The end of whatever in COVID, right? And then the next year, my wife with the Crohn's, we were worried. So she homeschooled him for that year. I guess it was fourth grade. So he really hadn't been to school in like 2 years. So it wasn't that big of a deal. You know what I mean? And he loves it here. I told you I'd like to get a head coaching job. He seems to think that East Lawrence is the center of the world. So we'll see how that works out.
That's right. That's how kids are. Wherever they are, that's what they want to be. Everything to happen. Mm-hmm. It's been great having you on. Really enjoyed the conversation. We look forward to having you maybe in the fall come on. Hopefully the season's going well and you guys you're probably back in school in a month, right? So
29.
Totally quick turnaround, right? Like totally different than like, hey, we're waiting till September, Labor Day. Like, no, August, like we're back to school. May, we're done with school.
Get one scrimmage and it's August start the season. It's crazy.
That is wild. Well, Coach, we'll let you go, and it was great having you on. And like I said, I look forward to touching base with you in the fall.
Yeah, man, thank you.
All right, Coach.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, man.
That was great.
He's good, man. Good dude. Been through a lot. Like, obviously, you think about it. He was at High Point, got riffed, right? And then went to 2 other schools and then went back, right? So built a program there that was, listen, solid foundation, right? Like always going to punch you in the mouth type of program. I mean, he talked about his offense being 90-10 1 year. I mean, like that was his style, but that was also the kids that he had. And
right.
To make that decision after you're kind of like, things are going, things are humming. I got a good program. I do this, I do that. To get up and go, you know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of that decision came down to like, it's a better position for my wife and that type of stuff. Obviously family matters, but I mean, just to go from being a head coach to an assistant coach, right? Like he's on it with a lot,
That was cool. It's cool to hear also how Georgia football is and some of the differences and he's pretty chill as a person too, so he's probably
right, it's probably a good fit, right? Like
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's also interesting that he's a Rumson guy, but he's an old school Rumson guy, like Della.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, when we're down here and I don't know, what do I know? Like, so I called him, like, hey, dude, what's Rumson all about? Tell me about it, right? Like you said, his mom still lives wherever.
He probably played with the guy that's the Red Bank coach now, or
no. He had played with one guy. He had definitely played with or for something. Because we had that
They're
conversation.
around the same age, I think. Maybe. Oh no, maybe he's more my age. I don't know. But that was really interesting conversation. Rumson, I mean, as a town, has grown so tremendously. I mean, the houses are unbelievable there. So, but it's funny because Dell used to always say like Dell was on the other side
Right.
of it,
Still.
and he's like not that there was a poor section in Rumson, but
He's like, but I was on that side.
I was on the side that was, I guess, wasn't as wealthy, I guess. But yeah, I mean, great area though, just beautiful area. Absolutely.
But listen, I really think like he'll have a head coaching job again, right? I think he really wants to do that. He has told me, and I'm sure he doesn't mind me saying this, but it's taken him a little bit more longer than he was expecting to get a head job. He was thinking, I'll come down here, I'll be an assistant for a year and I'll go get another gig. Like, it's kind of not like that, But some interesting things, I like how listen, could you imagine if a church group donated food to a public school up here, the things that we would deal with, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
that's awesome.
Isn't it like great? Like, and you don't have to worry about that. Like, oh yeah, church from whatever's bringing us food tonight. Oh, the church for here, like, really? And meanwhile, we'd be in North Jersey and there'd be somebody like, oh, I don't think that's right. And, you're forcing really, like, come on, dude. That just shows you the difference in like how much it matters.
That's a great point. Football is just so important. I mean, the South.
Listen, that's what he started with, right? Like that was his number one difference was people care down here way more than they do up there.
I think the right, definitely, and I think the other thing that that we didn't touch base on is the number of colleges that come through there. I just think it's probably mind blowing in the sense that there's so many Division I programs that they're all coming through. Whereas up here in New Jersey, there's Rutgers in the state of New Jersey. That's it, right? Yeah. So everything else is lower than Division I. Whereas down there, there's almost no.
And I looked it up, right? I looked it up. There is only 2 Division III schools down there. One is LeGrand College, and then the other is Berry College. Those are the only 2 NCAA Division III teams in Georgia.
That's amazing.
I think the big difference too is Division III. I feel is a Northeast thing.
Northeast, Midwest,
Ohio-ish.
Yeah, out to Ohio.
Then when you go down there, it's all Division I or FCS. Right. And then you have like a lot of like you might have like an NAIA, right? You may have like a 2, right? Like a D2, something of that nature. But Division III, I mean, it's high school football or Division I, and that's it.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe down there, because it's so important in high school as a whole in the South, that, have you read Friday Night Lights?
Of course.
The book. So the
real one.
Yeah, the book. So I always, to this day, I always found this part interesting. I think it was the quarterback. No, I'm sorry. The best after Boobie Miles went down, the tight end Chavez was an excellent player.
The safety.
Right, and he was a tight end and safety, I think. Right, yeah. Excellent player. I think he was smart, really smart. Went to Ivy
really
League.
Smart. Going to an Ivy League or something.
Right. When he went there, Chavez eventually stopped playing, and part of it was it wasn't as exciting as high school was. Right. So even though that was an FCS school,
it meant nothing to those people, and the atmosphere wasn't anything like it. And when he was there, it was like, hey, this is like what we do. And the entire town is around, and now you go somewhere else and it's non-existent. Like that does not happen.
Right. If you're from the South and you don't go Division I, where there's even more people at your games, right, than high school, but for you to go from probably top places in Georgia where you get 5,000 at a game each night, and then Florida. Well, Florida's different. Florida they may not even have that many fans, but it's just different. But a lot of the.
I feel like Texas is the big one where people like this is what it's all about. Like I always use, like, hey, like grandma's coming to the game and then so-and-so coming to the game, or, hey, we're closing the store early because there's a game tonight, right? Like that type of atmosphere. And look, if you're in it, you don't know any better. You know what I mean? Like you really just don't. So, and then you now move on to something else and all of a sudden you're like, really? This is like, why aren't these stands full?
Well, yeah, that's
a rather eye-opening experience.
It is an eye-opening experience, and I think there's so much in high school football in the South that if you're not at the highest level, there may be guys that are just like, hey, I'll just be a regular student, and that's it, that's it for me, type of deal. If they're not going to play at the highest level, they can't mentally wrap their head around.
Well, and the other thing is, like, what do I do if I don't have a Division I scholarship? Like, where else do I go? Right? Like, are you one of those kids that's are you gonna go from Texas to William Patterson University?
No, right? You're not. No.
Are you gonna go to Fairleigh Dickinson University from Texas for what?
It's so interesting. It's interesting.
Now maybe I say yes. I go to Kobe because I'm going to use that academically. But I don't know if everybody thinks like that.
I think the high academic schools probably have kids from a lot of different areas in Division III, like a Colby or I don't know, Hamilton or whatever.
Right, like what is it? In Jefferson.
What was you saying, Jeff, or what?
I was saying another school I was thinking of. Like, I'm just saying those high academic 2-3s in that Northeast, St. Anselm, like stuff like that. Like, I'm sure guys, I think it's so in their head that, like, hey, if I don't go Division I, then it's a bust.
It's a
in the bigger states where that's really your only option. Florida's the same way. It's not like there's any Division IIIs in Florida. Maybe one or two.
No, you're right. Well, let's wrap this one up. Great podcast.
Sounds good. Always.
Other than unfortunately the technical difficulties.
Oh, hey, now we know this is Georgia life, bro. Georgia living.
That's funny. All right, well, we'll sign off here.
Sounds good.
You all have a great day.